Let's go to Leanne Cusack now, who's with lawyer David Hollingsworth. Leanne?
Thank you, Matt. David always offers an education in the law. He sort of takes us to law school. Later, you will answer our viewer questions. It's really great to have you here, Dave. And you've received loads of questions about short-term rentals. Before we get to the general questions, let's dive into that.
Right.
A way that so many people are supplementing incomes during tough financial times, but there's a lot people need to know.
Right, that's right. So with vacation season right around the corner, it's a really relevant time to discuss it. And you know, short-term rentals are nothing new. They're rentals that are less than 30 days. But when they first came into existence, it was like the Wild West. We know that people would rent their places out, and then all of a sudden it became lucrative, and they were buying up condos and creating what were known as ghost hotels, where it would be, you know, condo building would be taken over and it'd be like a bachelor party every weekend and things like that. So
the rules aren't just different province to province, they're different city to city.
Right, so in response to that, there was some pushback. Now, for example, the City of Ottawa has passed bylaws that have strict requirements, for example, permits. You can only rent out your primary residence unless you can also have a cottage that does it. Restrictions on the number of people, you have to pay a certain amount of money, you have to leave people with certain lists of where the hotel or hospitals are and the garbage collection and stuff like that. And there are hefty fines if you don't follow these rules.
So I heard of someone who just asked their insurance agent about the potential of a short-term rental and their policy was void. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, from a liability perspective, what are the obligations of the host? And, you know, obviously, if you're going to have strangers in your home, that increases risks. It increases risks of things being damaged. It increases risks of somebody making a claim, because we're all subject to the Occupiers Liability Act, which we know means that you need to have your premises reasonably safe. So if you've got strangers in your home, in all four corners of your home and all the quirky things that we have in our homes, if somebody gets injured, or if there's a big party and they create a problem elsewhere, you know, there could be some liability. So the risk to the insurance company goes up.
So for example, you have a heritage home and the railings aren't to code because it was built 120 years ago. Could that be an issue?
It absolutely could be an issue. Anything that's seen as reasonably unsafe. And we kind of we understand these things in our own homes and we work around them, and especially when somebody's paying you money to be in your home, then you would think there's like a bit of a heightened obligation to make sure that they're reasonably safe while there. And there are some cases related to Airbnbs before the courts now from people who are injured.
So your last words to anyone who's interested in this would be?
Go to the City of Ottawa website. They do it is actually pretty user-friendly, and they'll set out what you need to do, what you need to know, and you know, by all means, use it, but be cautious.
And also be very upfront with your insurer.
For sure, yeah.
Before you launch into anything, and do the research first, though, right?
Yeah, I think the permit might require you to take it up with your insurance company, so you're absolutely right.
So let's get to the general questions. Are you ready? This is kind of
I
where
hope so.
I get to be the quiz master and you're on the seat, but they're your questions. So this one is, I was biking in a bike lane and a car clipped my back wheel, sent me flying. The car took off before I could see the license plate, and I haven't been able to ride since. Do I have any recourse?
Oh dear, yes. Well, sorry that happened. And yes, if the vehicle, whether or not the vehicle was identified, if you have your own insurance, you can get treatment through your own car insurance and whatnot. If the vehicle was not identified and you don't have any insurance, you would go to the Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund, and for both your treatment, but then also for the tort claim, which would be against the other driver. If they're unidentified, there's a claim at in the province called the Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund that you can make a claim against.
I would think that there are cameras pretty well everywhere now. Is it difficult to actually access, you know, a vehicle and a license plate?
Yeah, so there are cameras all over the place, not just at the intersections, but also a lot of businesses have cameras, and we have been able to do that, but it's amazing how we still have a bunch of cases where even if you can see the vehicle, we haven't been able to identify it, but
really tricky.
That helps. But sometimes I'm told the city will get rid of their tape every 30 days, so you want to act on it quickly.
Okay, that's good to know. I don't know that we have time for the next question, but we have a lot of questions for lawyer David Hollingsworth when we come back. Matt.
Let's go back to Leanne now with lawyer David Hollingsworth. Leanne?
Thank you, Matt. And before we get to more questions, we did want to revisit the short-term rentals. Some companies will say, yes, you can do this, but you have to really increase your liability.
Right. In terms of the insurance for the host, yes. And in London, Ontario, I think the council was looking to pass an obligation. You have up to $5 million liability. Most people have one or two on their home policies. That goes for renters too, by the way. Renters and condos. You can also, if you're a renter, you can you can short-term rent your place with the permission of the landlord, but the insurance requirements are pretty strict, and you want to cover yourself.
And I used that little anecdote I heard of the person who approached, but the worst case scenario is for your insurer to find out after the fact if there is incident.
Right, yeah, you think you have insurance and you've been paying your premiums, and then all of a sudden a claim occurs and the insurance company looks into it and says it was a short-term rental, and they say, well, that was not a peril that we agreed to, that's not a risk that we agreed to, and so they may try to take what's called an off-coverage position if you don't disclose that.
So we just wanted to revisit that, but now we're getting back to the questions from you for Dave Hollingsworth. This one starts with, we have a close family friend who is a real estate lawyer. I need a lawyer to help me with some family matters. I know most lawyers study everything. Is this possible? Is this true?
Yeah, so I guess the short answer is maybe ask your real estate lawyer friend if they have somebody to contact that they would refer you to. So, because family law, like all these areas of law, there's specialty. You're best to go with somebody who's really comfortable in the area.
You may think you're getting a better deal because it's a family friend, but it may not serve you the best in the end.
Cheap is expensive.
That's a good line. That's a bumper sticker, Dave. Okay, here's the next question. I smashed my rim on a pothole going through a construction site. Can I go after the construction company to pay for that repair?
So there is assuming it's in the city of Ottawa, again, go to their wonderful website and you can follow through. There is a way to make a claim. It's kind of through the 311 type process, and you can make a claim. If it's a city, and then I think if it's on city property or what will be city property when it's declared, they might work it out with the developer. If it's a developer that created the pothole, but again, City of Ottawa website, you can make a complaint and potentially get yourself compensated for that.
Okay, next question. What's the difference between custody and access when it comes to children?
So custody is essentially the parent or the guardian who gets the legal guardianship, which means typically they live with the custodial parent, and that parent decides on schooling and things like that. Whereas access is the parent who is able to visit and when they can visit and how they can visit the child.
Okay, now this one is someone's excited because they're about to buy their first house.
Okay.
Is there a rule somewhere as to what conditions can be put in an offer to purchase?
I guess the rule would be you can't put anything in that's illegal. So I don't know whether it was going to be a grow house or something like that. You wouldn't be able to do anything illegal or unconscionable in terms of the conditions. But you have to remember, if you're making the offer, the other party is either going to accept or reject it. So you know, if there's anything that's far outside the box beyond like inspection or financing or selling your own home or whatever it is, then you're just likely to get that much more pushback.
Okay, now this is a really important question. I've been asked to be a power of attorney for a friend. Am I putting myself at risk in any way by accepting?
I had about an hour and a half call this morning before coming in here today with somebody who is a power of attorney who is getting a lot of grief for it. And while it's a very noble thing to do and it's a very nice, helpful thing to do, sometimes no good deed goes unpunished. Having said that, as a power of attorney, you have an obligation to act in the best interests of the individual over whom you have that power of attorney, whether it's for health decisions or dealing with their property. So just be guided by the best interests of the person, but you're going to have some accounting to do, and you may have some splaining to do to family members or other folks. Okay,
that's well said. Now, this one, I want a divorce. Is there a 1-year separation period that is mandatory?
I understand that that's typically the short answer is yes, subject to certain things, whether there's cruelty or abuse, or I think even adultery fits within that. There are certain exceptions to it, but the general rule is you need a year.
And is it true that there have been a lot more divorces since COVID, or is that just hearsay?
I don't know the stats on that, but I've certainly heard that.
Question for a family lawyer, not a personal injury lawyer.
Right.
How about this one? This applies to a whole lot of people. Anyone who has a beautiful pet. Can owners be sued for injuries caused by their pets? And we've had this question before.
Yeah, we have, and the answer is yes. And there is, certainly as it relates to dogs, there's the Dog Owners Liability Act, which I think we've talked about. And it's what's called a strict liability offense. So basically, if your dog bites somebody, you're on the hook, even if they, did something to provoke the dog for the most part.
What if your dog jumps up on someone, they fall over and hit their head?
Same thing, okay. Absolutely, and that happens for sure. So yeah, you're on the hook, and if you have an iguana or some other type of animal that attacks somebody, you can expect to get the bill or get a claim.
Please do tell me you've had a case about the attacking iguana. That actually sounds like a really bad sci-fi thriller. We love having you on the program.
Thanks.
Dave Hollingsworth, thanks for the legal advice.
Thanks.
It's free, and all of the cliches are free as well, Matt.
Always good information. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, David.